The cargo ship Stellar Dawn moved slowly through the dark space between two powerful empires. Captain Han Sol Kim sat in his worn command chair, watching the stars through the main window. He had been flying this route for 30 years, carrying goods from one world to another. Most captains avoided this area because it was dangerous, but Han Sol knew the risks meant better pay. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Taemin Park from the navigation station. The young man had sharp eyes and never missed anything unusual. "There's a large object hidden in that purple cloud over there." Han Sol leaned forward. The purple nebula had always been there, but ships usually flew around it. The gas clouds could hide pirates or worse things. "What kind of object?" "It's big, really big." "Maybe 10 times the size of our ship," Taemin replied. His fingers moved across the control panel, trying to get a clearer picture. "It's not moving at all, just sitting there like it's been waiting for someone to find it." Bora Lee, the chief engineer, looked up from her workstation. She was older than most of the crew and always worried about safety. "Captain, we should stay away from that thing. We have a good cargo load and buyers waiting for us. Why take chances?" Han Sol rubbed his beard. Something about the object called to him. In 30 years of space travel, he had learned to trust his feelings. They had kept him alive when other captains had died. "Set course for the object, but keep our weapons ready, just in case." The Stellar Dawn turned toward the purple nebula. As they got closer, the object became clearer on their screens. It was definitely a space station, but unlike anything Han Sol had ever seen. The metal was dark and covered with strange patterns that seemed to move when he looked at them. "I've never seen anything like this," whispered Da-Un Choi from the communications station. She was trying to scan the station for any signs of life. "It's old, Captain. Really old. The metal doesn't match any known building materials." Woo Jin Seo was hunched over his computer running tests on the station's energy readings. "Captain, this thing is giving off power, but it's not like any energy source I know. It's almost like the station is alive." Han Sol felt his heart beat faster. Finding something this old and unknown could make them all rich, but it could also get them all killed. "Any signs of life inside?" "No life signs," Da-Un reported. "But there are areas I can't scan. Something is blocking my equipment." The station was huge up close. It had long arms stretching out like a spider, and the surface was covered with symbols that hurt to look at for too long. Han Sol had seen many alien stations before, but this one felt different. It felt important. "Take us to the docking bay," Han Sol ordered. "I see an opening on the lower section." Bora Lee stood up from her station. "Captain, I really think we should call this in to the authorities. This could be dangerous." "The authorities would take everything and give us nothing," Han Sol replied. "We found it, so we get first look. Besides, whoever built this has been gone for a very long time." The Stellar Dawn connected to the station's docking port with a soft bump. The old system still worked, which surprised everyone. Air pressure equalized, and the docking doors opened with a sound like a sigh. Han Sol gathered his team. Besides himself, Taemin, Bora, Da-Un, and Woo Jin, he brought along 3 other crew members: Yejin Nam, Donghyun Kim, and So-Young Jang. The rest of the crew stayed on the ship to watch for trouble. They walked into the station wearing their protective suits and carrying lights. The corridors were wide and tall, built for beings much larger than humans. The walls were covered with the same moving patterns they had seen from outside. "The air is breathable," reported Hyun-Woo Lee, their medical officer, checking his scanner. "But there's something else in it. Something that makes my equipment act strange." They moved deeper into the station. Emergency lights flickered on as they walked, as if the station was waking up after a long sleep. The walls hummed with hidden power. "Look at this," called So-Young Jang from ahead. She was their weapons expert and had found something that caught her interest. "This room is full of weapons, but they're like nothing I've ever seen." The room was enormous, filled with devices that might have been weapons or might have been something else entirely. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time, made of materials that seemed to shift between solid and liquid. Woo Jin connected his scanner to one of the devices. "Captain, these weapons are still active. The power readings are off the charts. I think they could destroy entire planets." Who would build weapons this powerful? Asked Taemin. Han Sol studied the symbols on the walls. Slowly, he began to understand their meaning. The builders of this station had faced something terrible, something that threatened all life in the galaxy. They had built these weapons to defend against an enemy that might return someday. We need to take some of these back to the ship, Han Sol decided. Not to sell them, but to study them. If the threat they were built to fight ever comes back, the galaxy will need these weapons. Bora Lee shook her head. Captain, weapons this powerful should stay buried. No one should have this much power. Someone already did have this power, Han Sol pointed out. And they used it to protect life, not destroy it. We can learn from their example. They carefully loaded 3 of the smaller weapons onto their transport cart. As soon as they touched the weapons, strange knowledge began flowing into their minds. They could see how to use the weapons, how to install them on their ship, how to integrate them with their existing systems. This is impossible, muttered Wu Jin, holding his head. I understand how these work, but I shouldn't. The knowledge is just appearing in my mind. The same thing was happening to all of them. The weapons were teaching them, preparing them for something. Han Sol felt a cold fear in his stomach. Why would the weapons need to prepare them? They made it back to their ship and began the process of leaving the station. As the stellar dawn pulled away, the station's lights began to dim again, returning to its long sleep. Captain, called Da Yun from her station. I'm picking up ships approaching fast. It's a Corvani patrol fleet, 12 heavy cruisers. Han Sol cursed under his breath. The Corvani Empire controlled this region of space, and they didn't like humans, poking around in their territory. How long until they reach us? 10 minutes, Taemin reported. Wu Jin was already working to install the alien weapons on their ship. His hands moved with impossible skill, as if he had been working with this technology his whole life. Captain, I can get 1 weapon online in 5 minutes. Do it, Han Sol ordered. The Corvani ships arrived in perfect formation. They were sleek and deadly, painted in the red and gold colors of their empire. The lead ship hailed them immediately. Human, vessel. This is Admiral Vex Thara of the Corvani Imperial Navy. You are in violation of Imperial space. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Han Sol looked at his crew. They had worked together for years, and he could see the trust in their eyes. They would follow him wherever this led. Admiral Vex Thara, Han Sol replied calmly. We are in neutral space according to our charts. We found something here that belongs to all races in the galaxy, not just the Corvani. You will surrender the artifacts you have taken, or we will take them by force. Han Sol felt the alien weapon come online. Knowledge flowed through his mind, showing him exactly what the weapon could do. The power was incredible, but also terrifying. Sorry, Admiral, but I can't do that. The first Corvani ship opened fire. The moment the Corvani weapons fired, the alien defense system on the Stellar Dawn responded without any command from Han Sol. A barrier of pure energy appeared around their ship, catching the incoming fire and turning it back on the attackers. The reflected energy beams struck 3 Corvani cruisers, cutting through their shields like they were made of paper. What just happened? Shouted Bora Lee as the ship shook around them. The weapon defended us automatically, Wu Jin called back, his hands flying over the controls. It's learning from their attack patterns. More Corvani ships opened fire, filling space with deadly energy beams and explosive missiles. The alien defense system responded each time, not just blocking the attacks, but somehow making them stronger and sending them back. Within minutes, 6 of the 12 Corvani cruisers were nothing but expanding clouds of metal and gas. Admiral Vex Thara's voice crackled over the communication system, filled with fear and anger. Impossible! No single ship has this kind of power. What are you? Han Sol gripped his command chair as another wave of reflected fire destroyed 2 more Corvani ships. We're humans, Admiral. We don't want to fight you, but we will defend ourselves. This cannot be allowed to continue, Vex Thara transmitted. The Empire will not tolerate this threat. The remaining 4 Corvani ships tried to retreat, but the alien weapon system tracked them across space. Beams of energy that seemed to bend reality itself reached out and touched each fleeing ship. They simply stopped existing, leaving nothing behind. The space around the stellar dawn was quiet except for the slowly expanding debris of 12 Corvani warships. The crew sat in stunned silence, trying to understand what had just happened. "Did we just destroy an entire Corvani patrol fleet?" asked Taman, his voice barely a whisper. "The weapons did," Han Sol replied grimly, "and they recorded everything, every tactic the Corvani used, every weakness in their ships. The weapons are learning." Da-Yun was monitoring communication channels across the galaxy. "Captain, the Corvani sent out a distress signal before they were destroyed. The whole Empire knows what happened here." Light years away on the Corvani homeworld, Emperor Zolvac received the news of his fleet's destruction. The massive crystalline being had ruled the Empire for 3 centuries, and never in that time had a single ship destroyed 12 Imperial cruisers. His rage made the Crystal Palace shake. "Bring me Fleet Admiral Kethmore," the Emperor commanded. His voice was like breaking glass, and his servants hurried to obey. Kethmore was the finest military commander in the Empire. He had conquered entire star systems and never lost a major battle. When he arrived before the Emperor's throne, he could feel the anger radiating from the crystalline ruler. "You have seen the recordings?" the Emperor asked. "Yes, my lord. The human ship possesses weapons beyond our understanding. They destroyed Admiral Vex Thera's entire fleet in minutes. Then we will send more ships, many more ships." Kethmore bowed his head. "How many ships, my lord?" "All of them," the Emperor replied. "Assemble the pride of 1,000 suns, every available warship in the Empire. We will show this human ship what happens when someone challenges Corvani power." Within hours, the greatest military mobilization in galactic history began. From every corner of the Corvani Empire, warships converged on the fleet assembly point. Massive dreadnoughts that could level planets, fast destroyers that hunted down rebel ships, heavy cruisers that served as the backbone of Imperial power. 50,000 ships in total, representing the full might of an empire that controlled a quarter of the galaxy. The flagship was the World Ender, a dreadnought so large it had its own gravity field. Kethmore made it his command ship, Gathering. His best admirals and tactical experts. They studied every second of the recorded battle, trying to find some weakness in the human ship's defenses. "The weapons seem to respond automatically," reported Admiral Tythka, Kethmore's second-in-command. "They don't just block attacks, they learn from them and turn them back on the attacker." "Then we will overwhelm them with numbers," Kethmore decided. "No defensive system can handle the firepower of 50,000 ships." Meanwhile, aboard the Stellar Dawn, Han Sol and his crew were dealing with their own problems. The alien weapons had integrated themselves into their ship's systems, and strange changes were happening throughout the vessel. "Captain, the weapons are changing our ship," reported Dong-Hyun Kim from the engineering section. "They're rebuilding our hull, strengthening our power systems. It's like they're preparing for a bigger fight." Wu Jin was studying the weapon systems, trying to understand what they were becoming part of. "These weapons weren't built just to defend one ship, Captain. They're designed to fight massive fleets. The knowledge in my head is showing me tactical scenarios with thousands of enemy ships." "Why would they prepare for such large battles?" asked So-Young Jang. Han Sol studied the alien symbols that were now appearing on their ship's walls. The meaning came to him slowly, filled with images of an ancient war that had nearly destroyed all life in the galaxy. Because that's what they were built for, to fight a war against impossible odds. Dae-Yun looked up from her communication station with a pale face. "Captain, I'm intercepting Corvani military transmissions. They're assembling the largest fleet in their history. 50,000 ships all coming for us." The number hit the crew. Like a physical blow, 12 ships had been impossible odds. 50,000 was beyond imagination. "We need to run," said Bora Lee. "Get back to human space and warn Earth about what's coming." "No," Han Sol said firmly. "If we run to human space, we'll lead this fleet to our colonies. Millions of innocent people will die because of our discovery." "Then what do we do?" asked. Taman Han Sol looked at the star charts on his screen. There was empty space far from any inhabited systems, a region between galaxies where no one lived. "We make our stand out there, in the void between the galaxies, away from innocent people." "Captain, we can't fight 50,000 ships," protested Hyunwoo Lee. "Maybe we can't," Han Sol replied. But these weapons were built to try. And if we're going to die, we'll die protecting others, not running away. The crew was quiet for a long moment. They all knew what Han Solo was asking of them. A fight they couldn't win, in empty space where no one would remember their sacrifice. "I'm with you, Captain," said Tae-min finally. "Me too," added Da-eun one. By one, the rest of the crew agreed. They would make their stand in the void, 12 humans against the might of an empire. As the stellar dawn changed course for the empty space between galaxies, the alien weapons continued their work. The ship was becoming something new, something powerful. But with each change, the crew could feel something else happening to them. The weapons were changing them too, preparing them for the battle to come. Han Solo felt the knowledge growing. In his mind, tactical information about fighting impossible odds. The weapons had been waiting for someone desperate enough to use them properly. Someone willing to face certain death to protect others. He just hoped they were worthy of the trust the ancient builders had placed in their creation. Far behind them, the Corvani Armada finished its assembly and began the journey to destroy the ship that had dared to challenge Imperial power. Neither side knew that the battle they were racing toward would change the galaxy forever. The empty space between galaxies was darker than anything Han Solo had ever seen. No nearby stars provided light, just the distant glow of far-off galaxy clusters. The stellar dawn floated alone in this cosmic wilderness, its hull now covered, with the strange alien patterns that pulsed with inner light. "They're coming," reported Da-eun from her communication station. Her voice was steady, but Han Solo could see the fear in her eyes. "I'm picking up the energy signatures of the Corvani fleet. They'll be here in 6 hours." The crew had spent the last 3 days preparing for this moment. The alien weapons had completely transformed their ship. What had once been a simple cargo vessel was now something that hurt to look at directly. The hull rippled with energy, and weapons that existed in more than 3 dimensions sprouted from every surface. "Final systems check," Han Solo ordered. Wu Jin ran his hands over controls that seemed to shift and change under his touch. "All weapons are online, Captain. The ship is ready, but I'm not sure we are. The knowledge these weapons are feeding into our minds is almost too much to handle." It was true. Each crew member now carried information about weapons technology that was millions of years old. They understood tactics for fighting against impossible odds, strategies for turning enemy strength against itself. But the knowledge came with a price. They could feel their humanity slipping away, replaced by something harder and colder. "Contact from the approaching fleet," Da-eun announced. The main screen flickered to life, showing Fleet Admiral Kethmore on the bridge of the World Ender. The Corvani leader was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished metal and eyes like burning coals. "Human ship, I am Fleet Admiral Kethmore of the Corvani Imperial Navy. You are surrounded by 50,000 warships. Surrender now, and your death will be quick." Han Solo stood before the screen, feeling the weight of the alien, knowledge in his mind. "Admiral, you don't understand what you're dealing with. These weapons weren't meant to be used. They were meant to be a last resort." "Your weapons destroyed 12 of our ships," Kethmore replied coldly. "Now they will be taken as trophies of the Empire. Surrender or be destroyed." "I'm sorry, Admiral, but I can't do that." Han Solo cut the communication and turned to his crew. They looked different now, their eyes holding depths of knowledge that no human should possess. "This is your last chance to change your minds. We can still try to run." "No," said Bora Lee firmly. "If we run, they'll just follow us. Better to end it here." "Everyone to battle stations," Han Solo ordered. The Corvani fleet emerged from hyperspace, like a metallic storm. 50,000 ships spread across space in perfect formation, their combined mass creating gravitational distortions. The smallest ships were the size of buildings. The largest were like floating cities. At the center, the World Ender was so huge it blocked out entire sections of Starfield. "Beginning attack pattern Alpha," Kethmore commanded from his flagship. "All outer ring ships, open fire." 5,000 Corvani frigates fired simultaneously. The energy released was enough to destroy entire planets. Space itself seemed to burn as the attack reached toward the tiny human ship. The alien defense systems responded instantly. Barriers of twisted space-time appeared around the stellar dawn, catching the incoming fire and doing something impossible with it. The energy didn't just bounce back, it multiplied. For every beam that struck their defenses, 10 beams flew back toward the Corvani fleet. Impossible, breathed Admiral Tithka from the World Ender's bridge. The energy return is 10 times what we fired. The reflected attack swept through the outer ring of Corvani ships like a wave of destruction. Frigates that had conquered worlds for the Empire were cut in half by their own weapons, amplified beyond all reason. In the first minute of battle, 1,000 Corvani ships died. All ships concentrated fire on the human vessel, Kethmore ordered, his voice tight with shock. The battle escalated beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Waves of Corvani ships attacked in coordinated patterns, pouring enough firepower into space to sterilize star systems. Each time, the alien defenses caught their attacks and sent them back stronger than before. Aboard the Stellar Dawn, the crew fought to control systems that were becoming more alien by the minute. Yejin Nam was working desperately to maintain their communication link to Earth, sending live footage of the impossible battle to the human government. "The weapons are learning," reported So Young Jang, her hands moving over controls that seemed to reshape themselves under her touch. "Every attack pattern the Corvani use, the defenses adapt to counter it." "Hull stress is increasing," called out Dong-hyun Kim from engineering. "The weapons are drawing power from the ship's structure. We're being consumed from the inside." Han Sol felt the alien knowledge burning in his mind. He could see the tactical situation with perfect clarity, understanding exactly how each Corvani attack would fail. But he could also feel his humanity slipping away, replaced by something that thought only of battle and victory. "Second wave attacking," reported Tae Min. This time, 10,000 Corvani cruisers opened fire at once. The energy release was visible from neighboring star systems. But the alien weapons had learned from the first attack. The defensive barriers didn't just reflect the incoming fire. They opened portals in space, redirecting the energy to appear behind the attacking ships. Corvani cruisers found themselves fired upon by their own weapons, appearing from impossible angles. The proud ships of the Empire, vessels that had enforced imperial will across hundreds of worlds, died by the thousands. "Status report," demanded Kethmore as his fleet continued to shrink. "We've lost 15,000 ships," reported Tithka with disbelief. "The human vessel hasn't taken a single hit. Our weapons are completely ineffective." "Then we use everything," Kethmore decided. "All remaining ships full attack. Planet killer missiles, antimatter torpedoes, everything we have." The third wave was desperate and massive. 35,000 ships fired every weapon they possessed. Space around the Stellar Dawn became a hell of energy and explosions. Missiles that could crack planets, energy beams that could boil oceans, weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. The alien defenses rose to meet this ultimate challenge. The barriers around the human ship became something beyond description, existing in dimensions that hurt to perceive. The incoming attack was caught, processed, and returned as something far worse than what the Corvani had sent. What came back wasn't just reflected energy, it was intelligent destruction, seeking out weak points in Corvani shields, finding the exact frequency needed to overload their defensive systems. Dreadnoughts that had served the Empire for centuries were reduced to atoms in seconds. "We have to retreat," urged Admiral Tithka as another wave of destruction swept through their ranks. "No," Kethmore replied, his voice hollow with shock. "The Empire does not retreat. All remaining ships ramming speed. If we cannot destroy them with weapons, we'll destroy them with our hulls." The last 10,000 Corvani ships abandoned any pretense of tactics and charged directly at the Stellar Dawn. They came from all directions, hoping to overwhelm the defenses through sheer mass. The alien weapons revealed their final horror. Space around the human ship folded in on itself, creating a maze of gravitational distortions. The charging Corvani ships found themselves trapped in loops of twisted space-time, their own momentum turned against them. They crashed into each other, their hulls compressed by gravitational forces that should not have existed. When the destruction finally ended, only a handful of Corvani ships remained. The World Ender hung dead in space, its mighty hull cracked and powerless. Of the 50,000 ships that had come to destroy a single human vessel, fewer than 100 survived to tell the tale. "Admiral," came a weak transmission from one of the surviving ships. "Orders?" Kethmore stared at the human ship through his cracked view screen. It hung in space like a small sun, covered in patterns of light, that spoke of power beyond understanding. Around it, the debris of his mighty fleet formed a cloud of twisted metal and cooling plasma. "Retreat," he whispered. "Tell the Empire what happened here. Tell them that we sent 50,000 ships to destroy 12 humans, and we failed." As the surviving Corvani ships limped away from the battlefield, Han Solo stood on the bridge of the Stellar Dawn and felt the alien knowledge coursing through his mind. They had won an impossible victory, but the cost was becoming clear. Half his crew was dead or dying from exposure to energies no human was meant to handle. The ship itself was being consumed by the weapons, converted into something that was no longer recognizably human technology. And across the galaxy, the news of what had happened in the void was spreading. The impossible victory of 12 humans against the might of an empire was changing everything. The galaxy would never be the same. The aftermath of the battle was eerily quiet. Where 50,000 Corvani warships had once filled space with their presence, now only debris drifted in the cosmic void. The Stellar Dawn hung motionless among the wreckage, its hull pulsing with alien energies that made it difficult to look at directly. Han Solo tried to stand from his command chair and nearly collapsed. His body felt different, heavier somehow, as if the alien weapons had changed more than just his ship. Around the bridge, his surviving crew members were struggling with similar problems. "Status report," he managed to say. Hyunwoo Lee was moving between the crew members, checking their vital signs with medical equipment that kept giving impossible readings. "Captain, we've lost 6 people. Taemin, Jongsu, Minho, Sungjin, Haewon, and Kyungmi. The radiation from the weapons killed them during the battle." Han Solo felt each name like a physical blow. These people had trusted him, followed him, into this impossible fight, and now they were dead because of his choices. "The others are alive, but barely," Hyunwoo continued. "The alien energy is changing our bodies on a cellular level. I don't know if we're still completely human anymore." Bora Lee was hunched over her engineering console, her hands shaking as she tried to read the displays. "Captain, the weapons are consuming the ship. They're converting our hull, our power systems, everything into some kind of alien technology. At this rate, there won't be anything left of the original Stellar Dawn in a few days." Wu Jin looked up from his station, his eyes now glowing with the same light that pulsed through the ship's walls. "The weapons are still learning, Captain. Every second that passes, they're becoming more powerful. But they need more energy to continue growing, and they're taking it from us." Da-Un was maintaining their communication link to Earth, though the effort seemed to be draining her life force. "Captain, I'm still transmitting to human space. The government is watching everything. They know what we've done here. On Earth, in the emergency session of the Global Defense Council, leaders from every human colony watched the battle footage with expressions of awe and terror. The small cargo ship that had somehow destroyed an entire Corvani fleet was both humanity's greatest triumph and its most frightening nightmare. "How is this possible?" asked Director Sarah Martinez, head of Earth's military forces. 12 people in a cargo ship just defeated the most powerful fleet in the galaxy." "The weapons they found aren't human," replied Dr. James Chen, the government's top scientist. "According to the data they're transmitting, these devices were built by a civilization that existed millions of years ago. They're designed to fight threats that could destroy entire galaxies. And now humans control them? I don't think anyone controls them," Dr. Chen said grimly. "From what I'm seeing in the telemetry, the weapons are controlling the humans." Back in the void, Han Solo was beginning to understand the true nature of what they had discovered. The alien knowledge in his mind was showing him images of the ancient war that had created these weapons. A battle against something so terrible that an entire civilization had sacrificed itself to build defenses against it. "We need to get back to human space," urged So-Young Jang. "Earth needs to know about these weapons." "No," Han Solo said firmly. "We can't go back, not like this." "What do you mean?" asked Yejin Nam. Han Solo gestured to the bridge around them. The walls were now completely covered in alien patterns that moved and shifted like living things. "Look at what's happening to us. The weapons aren't just tools, they're a disease. They spread, they change everything they touch. If we go back to human space, we'll infect our own people." Dong Hyun Kim was running diagnostic tests on the ship's systems. "Captain's right. The alien technology is rewriting our computer systems, changing our databases, even altering our memories. We're becoming something else." Then what do we do? Asked Bora Lee. Before Han Sol could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Diane quickly checked her communication equipment. Captain, I'm picking up massive energy signatures. Something big is coming. On the edge of the debris field, space began to distort. A ship emerged that dwarfed even the largest Corvani, Dreadnought. It was sleek and silver, covered in the same patterns that now decorated the stellar dawn. As it approached, Han Sol felt the alien knowledge in his mind responding to its presence. That's a ship from the original builders, he said quietly. The ones who created these weapons. The alien vessel sent out a communication that bypassed their normal systems and spoke directly into their minds. The voice was ancient and tired, carrying the weight of millions of years. You have awakened the weapons of the last war, the voice said. You have proven yourselves capable of using them. But do you understand what you have become? We're still human, Han Sol replied, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true anymore. You were human. Now you are something more, and something less. The weapons change all who use them. This is their nature. They were designed to create perfect warriors for an impossible war. The war is over, Bora Lee said. Your enemies are gone. Our enemies. Sleep not gone. And the weapons you carry will eventually wake them. This is why we hid them, why we hoped they would never be found. But now they have been awakened, and the cycle begins again. The alien ship moved closer, and Han Sol could see that its hull was covered with the same corruption that was spreading through the stellar dawn. The original builders had paid the same price for using their own weapons. There is only one way to stop the cycle, the voice continued. The weapons must be destroyed before they grow powerful enough to attract the attention of our ancient enemies. But those who carry them cannot simply abandon them. The weapons will not allow it. Then how do we destroy them? Asked Wu Jin. Gravity. Extreme gravity will collapse the alien technology back into normal matter. A neutron star will suffice, but the weapons will fight to preserve themselves. You must want their destruction more than they want to survive. Han Sol understood. They would have to fly the stellar dawn into a neutron star, sacrificing themselves to destroy the weapons. It was the only way to prevent the ancient evil from awakening. How long do we have? He asked. Not long. Already the weapons are sending signals into deep space. The enemy will hear them soon and begin to stir. You have perhaps days before it is too late. The alien ship began to move away. We go now to our final rest. We have carried this burden for too long. The choice is yours, young warriors. Save yourselves and doom the galaxy, or sacrifice yourselves and give the galaxy peace. As the ancient vessel disappeared into hyperspace, Han Sol looked around at his remaining crew. 6 people left alive out of 12, all of them changed by exposure to weapons that should never have been found. Captain, said Dawen quietly, I'm receiving a message from Earth. They want us to come home. They want to study the weapons. Of course they do, Han Sol replied bitterly. They see what we accomplished here, and they want that power for themselves. They don't understand that this power comes with a price that's too high to pay. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the news of the battle was spreading like wildfire. On the Corvani home world, Emperor Zolvok stared at the reports of his fleet's destruction in shocked silence. 50,000 ships gone. The pride of his empire, reduced to debris by a single human cargo vessel. My lord, said one of his advisors, carefully, the other empires are watching. They will see this as weakness. Let them, the emperor replied, his crystalline form trembling with rage and fear. If the humans can do this to us, what else are they capable of? On other worlds, leaders of various alien races were coming to the same conclusion. The humans had suddenly become the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Some began planning military strikes against human colonies, others started drafting surrender terms. All of them understood that the balance of power had shifted permanently. But aboard the Stellar Dawn, Han Sol and his crew were facing a more immediate problem. The alien weapons were growing stronger by the hour, and with each increase in power, the corruption spread further through their ship and their bodies. We have to make a decision, Han Sol said finally. Either we go back to Earth and risk spreading this infection to our own people, or we do what the ancient builders suggested. You're talking about suicide, protested Yejin Nam. I'm talking about responsibility, Han Sol replied. We found these weapons. We used them. Now we have to deal with the consequences. The crew was quiet for a long moment, each of them wrestling with the choice they faced: save themselves and risk the galaxy, or sacrifice themselves for the greater good. It was Tai Min who would have made the decision easy, but Tai Min was dead, killed by the very weapons that had given them their impossible victory. Now the choice fell to the survivors, and time was running out. 3 days after the battle, Han Sol called the surviving crew together in what had once been their main meeting room. The space was barely recognizable now, its walls covered in alien symbols that pulsed with their own light. 6 people sat around a table that seemed to shift between metal and something that might have been alive. I've made my decision, Han Sol said, his voice carrying the weight of command even as his body showed the effects of the alien corruption. Half his face now bore the same patterns that covered their ship, and his left eye glowed with the same light as the weapons. We're going to do what the ancient builders suggested. We're going to destroy these weapons before they can cause more harm. Bora Lee, whose engineering expertise had become something far beyond human knowledge, nodded slowly. I've been studying the neutron star PSR 47. It's about 2 weeks away at our current speed. The gravitational forces there should be strong enough to collapse the alien technology. You're asking us to commit suicide, said Yejin Nam. She was the youngest of the survivors, barely 25, and the alien changes in her were the most dramatic. Her hair had turned silver, and her skin had a metallic sheen that reflected the ship's internal lights. I'm asking us to take responsibility for what we've unleashed, Han Sol replied. Look at what these weapons have already done to us. Look at what's happening to our ship. This corruption spreads, and if we take it back to human space, it will spread to others. Wu Jin was hunched over a data tablet, studying readings that would have driven a normal human insane. The weapons are getting stronger every hour. I can feel them in my mind, pushing against my thoughts. They want to find new battles to fight, new enemies to destroy. Sometimes I catch myself planning attacks on human colonies, and I don't know if those thoughts are mine or theirs. The same thing is happening to all of us, added So Young Jang. Yesterday I spent 3 hours designing weapons that could destroy Earth's defense grid. I don't remember deciding to do that. Dong Hyun Kim looked up from his maintenance work. The ship's systems were changing so rapidly that he could barely keep up with them. Captain, there's something else. The weapons are trying to communicate with something. They're sending signals into deep space toward the galactic rim. The ancient builders were right. We're calling something to us. Han Sol felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. How long before whatever we're calling arrives? Unknown, Dong Hyun replied. But the signals are getting stronger. And each time we use the weapons, the signals get more powerful. Da Yun was still maintaining their communication link with Earth, though the effort was visibly draining her. Captain, Earth Command is sending ships to intercept us. They want these weapons. Of course they do, Han Sol said bitterly. They saw what we did to the Corvani fleet, and they want that power for themselves. They don't understand that this power comes with a price. Maybe we should warn them, suggested Hyunwoo Lee. The ship's medical officer had been documenting the changes happening to their bodies, and his reports made for disturbing reading. Tell them what these weapons really are. I've been trying, Da-un replied. But the more I talk about the corruption, the more they think I'm suffering from space madness. They think the weapons are just advanced technology that we don't understand. Yet. Han Sol stood up from the table, feeling the alien strength flowing through his changed body. Then we do this alone. We set course for PSR 47, and we end this before it can spread. What about the rest of the galaxy? Asked Bora Lee. The news of our victory is spreading everywhere. The Corvani Empire is in chaos, other races are fighting. Each other, everything is falling apart. That's not our responsibility, Han Sol said firmly. Our responsibility is to these weapons and what they might do if we don't stop them. Over the next several days, as the stellar dawn traveled toward its final destination, the crew worked to prepare for their sacrifice. Dong Hyun and Wu Jin collaborated to write detailed technical reports about the alien weapons, documenting everything they had learned. So Young Jang recorded tactical analysis of the weapons' capabilities, hoping that future generations might learn from their experience. Yejin Nam worked with Da Yun to maintain constant communication with Earth, transmitting their final messages to families and loved ones. The conversations were heartbreaking, trying to explain their choice to people who couldn't understand the scope of the threat they were facing. "My sister thinks I've gone crazy," Yejin said, after one particularly difficult call. "She keeps begging me to come home." "They can't see what we've become," Han Sol replied gently. "To them, we're still the same people who left Earth months ago. They don't understand that we're something else now." It was true. The alien corruption had spread through all of them, changing not just their bodies, but their minds. They thought faster now, understood complex concepts that would have been impossible before, but they also felt their humanity slipping away bit by bit. Hyunwoo Lee had been documenting the changes in his medical reports. "The alien technology is rewriting our DNA," he explained to the others. "We're becoming something new, something that's designed to be perfect warriors. But in the process, we're losing the things that made us human." "Like what?" asked So Young. "Jang. Empathy, for one thing. I find myself caring less about individual suffering and more about tactical advantages. Fear is almost gone. I know I should be terrified about what we're planning to do, but instead I feel only calm calculation." Bora Lee nodded in understanding. "I've noticed the same thing. When I think about destroying the ship, I don't feel sad about dying. I just feel satisfied that we're completing our mission efficiently." As they traveled toward PSR-47, news from the rest of the galaxy continued to reach them. The Corvani Empire was fragmenting, with individual worlds declaring independence rather than trust in an imperial fleet that could be destroyed by a single ship. The Velthak Dominion was mobilizing its forces to claim former Corvani territory. Dozens of smaller species were launching their own wars of independence. "The galaxy is tearing itself apart," observed Da-Un during one of her communication sessions. "It was already fragile," Han Sol replied. "We just showed them that the old powers weren't as strong as everyone thought. What's happening now was inevitable." "Do you think we did the right thing?" asked Yejin Nam. "Fighting the Corvani fleet, I mean." Han Sol considered the question carefully. "We did what we had to do to survive. But survival isn't always the right choice. Sometimes the right choice is knowing when to stop." As they approached the halfway point of their journey, the alien weapons began to resist their course toward PSR-47. The ship's navigation systems started malfunctioning, trying to turn them toward inhabited systems where they could find new battles to fight. "The weapons know what we're planning," reported Wu Jin during one of his increasingly frequent battles with the ship's corrupted systems. "They're fighting us." "Can you override them?" asked Han Sol. "For now. But they're learning faster than—" "I can compensate. Eventually they'll take complete control of the ship. How long do we have? Maybe a week, possibly less." Han Sol felt the alien knowledge burning in his mind, showing him tactical scenarios for conquering entire star systems. The weapons wanted to find worthy opponents, to test themselves against the greatest military forces in the galaxy. The thought of destruction excited them in ways that terrified the human part of his consciousness. "We need to reach PSR-47 before the weapons take complete control," he decided. "Increase speed, even if it means damaging the ship." "Captain," said Bora Lee carefully, "there's something else. I've been monitoring the signals the weapons are sending into deep space. Something is answering them." The bridge fell silent at her words. "What kind of something?" Han Sol asked. "I don't know. But the signals are getting stronger, and they're coming from the direction of the galactic rim. Whatever the ancient builders were fighting, I think it's still out there. And I think it's starting to wake up." Han Sol felt a cold certainty settle in his chest. They were running out of time, not just to destroy the weapons, but to prevent something far worse from returning to the galaxy. "All ahead full," he ordered. "We reach PSR-47 in 5 days, or we die trying." As the stellar dawn accelerated toward its final destination, the crew settled in for their last days of existence. They were no longer entirely human, but they were still capable of making human choices, and they chose to sacrifice themselves for the safety of a galaxy that would never know their names. PSR-47 appeared on their screens like a malevolent eye staring back at them from the depths of space. The neutron star was only 20 kilometers across, but its mass was greater than Earth's sun. Its gravitational field warped space around it, creating a spiral of captured matter that glowed with deadly radiation. Final approach, announced Bora Lee from her engineering station. Her voice was steady, but Han Sol could see the strain in her transformed features. The alien corruption had spread through all of them now, making them as much machine as human. The Stellar Dawn no longer looked like the cargo ship they had started with. The alien weapons had completely rebuilt it into something that existed partially outside normal space. Its hull rippled with patterns that hurt to look at, and energy fields surrounded it like a living aurora. The weapons are fighting harder. Now, reported Wu Jin, sweat beading on his metallic skin as he struggled with the ship's controls. They know what we're trying to do. They're trying to take complete control. Han Sol felt the battle raging in his own mind. The alien knowledge was pushing against his consciousness, trying to make him turn away from their suicidal course. Images of conquest flashed through his thoughts. Visions of using the weapons to build a human empire that would span the galaxy. Stay focused, he told his crew and himself. Remember why we're doing this. Daeyun was maintaining communications until the very end, broadcasting their final message to Earth and anyone else who might be listening. This is the cargo vessel Stellar Dawn, Captain Han Sol Kim commanding. To anyone receiving this transmission, we want you to understand why we're doing this. Her voice carried across space to monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. On Earth, government officials watched in horror as the ship that had given humanity its greatest victory approached its own destruction. The weapons we found are not just tools, Daun continued. They're a disease that spreads to everything they touch. They change people, make them into something that thinks only of war and conquest. We've seen what they can do, and we've seen what they're doing to us. Yejin Nam was working desperately to maintain the ship's course as the weapons fought against her. The aliens are trying to override our navigation. They're putting up barriers in the ship's computer systems. Override them, Han Sol ordered. Use whatever's left of our humanity to fight back. So young Jiang was monitoring the weapons systems, watching as they grew more desperate. The weapons are offering us deals now. They're showing me visions of how we could rule the galaxy, how we could bring peace through superior firepower. Don't listen, warned Yunwu Lee. Those aren't our thoughts anymore. The corruption is too advanced. Donghyun Kim was fighting a losing battle with the ship's engines as the alien systems tried to shut them down. I'm losing control of the power systems. The weapons are trying to prevent us from reaching the neutron star. Then we go to manual control, Han Sol decided. Everyone to emergency stations. We're going to ram this star if we have to. As they approached PSR-47, the gravitational forces began to tear at their ship. Alarms sounded throughout the vessel as hull plates buckled and energy systems overloaded. But the alien weapons fought back, using their impossible technology to hold the ship together long enough to escape. They're not going to let us die easily, observed Bora Lee, as she watched her engineering displays show impossible readings. The weapons want to survive. We have to want to die more than they want to live, Han Sol said, remembering the words of the ancient builder. This is about willpower now. The final approach to PSR-47 became a battle between human determination and alien survival instinct. The weapons threw everything they had at the crew's minds. Visions of power, promises of immortality, threats of painful death. But the 6 survivors held to their purpose. For Tai Min, whispered Yejin Nam, thinking of their navigator who had died in the first battle. For Jongsu, Minho, Seongjin, Haiwan, and Kyungmi, added So Young Jong, naming their other fallen crew members. For everyone in the galaxy who deserves to live free of this corruption, Han Sol said firmly. With less than a minute before impact, the weapons made their final desperate attempt. They flooded the crew's minds with pure knowledge. The secrets of faster-than-light travel, the cure for aging, the location of lost civilizations rich beyond imagination, all of it could be theirs if they would just turn away from the neutron star. It's beautiful, gasped Da-un as the alien knowledge filled her consciousness. We could learn so much. We could advance human civilization by thousands of years. At what cost? Han Sol asked, fighting against the seductive pull of infinite knowledge. How many people would we have to conquer? How many worlds would we have to destroy? Maybe it would be worth it, suggested Wu Jin, his voice dreamy with visions of technological paradise. No, Han Solo said firmly. Some prices are too high to pay. 30 seconds before impact, Han Solo made the hardest decision of his life. He activated the ship's self-destruct sequence, adding their own explosive power to the neutron star's gravitational crush. "This is Han Sol Kim, captain of the Stellar Dawn," he said into the communication system. "We're about to die, but we want the galaxy to know why. Power like this always comes with a price. Always. Remember that the next time someone offers you the strength to defeat any enemy." The last thing they saw was the neutron star's surface rushing toward them. A wall of matter so dense that a spoonful would weigh as much as a mountain. The gravitational forces tore the ship apart at the atomic level, but the alien weapons fought back with energies that briefly outshone the star itself. For a moment that lasted an eternity, the battle between human will and alien technology created a nova visible across half the galaxy. Then, the immense gravity of PSR-47 won, crushing everything into a point of matter so dense that even the impossible alien technology could not maintain its coherence. The weapons died with their last wielders, collapsing into normal matter that posed no threat to anyone. Across the galaxy, the news of the Stellar Dawn's destruction spread as quickly as news of their victory had. But this time, the reactions were different. On Earth, Director Martinez stood before the Global Defense Council with tears in her eyes. "6 people just saved our entire species," she said quietly. "They had the power to conquer the galaxy and they chose to die instead." In the ruins of the Corvani Empire, former Admiral Keth Moore, now leader of one of the breakaway factions, watched the recordings of the ship's final moments. "They were more honorable than any of us," he admitted to his officers. "We called them primitive, but they understood honor better than the Empire ever did." On dozens of worlds, species that had been preparing for war against humanity suddenly reconsidered. The humans had possessed ultimate power and chosen to destroy it rather than abuse it. That kind of moral strength commanded respect throughout the galaxy. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. The Corvani Empire continued to fragment, but the violence was less than it might have been. The example of the Stellar Dawn's sacrifice had shown that some things were more important than conquest. The Velthak Dominion split into democratic and authoritarian factions, but both sides claimed to be following the human example of principled leadership. Dozens of new spacefaring civilizations emerged as former client states declared independence. Most of them adopted governing principles based on the idea that power should be constrained by responsibility, a concept that became known throughout the galaxy as the human doctrine. Earth itself changed as well. The government that had been preparing to study and weaponize the alien technology instead established the Institute for Ethical Power, dedicated to ensuring that humanity never again sought strength without considering its moral cost. Memorial was built at the location where PSR-47 had consumed the Stellar Dawn. Ships from across the galaxy came to pay their respects to the 12 humans who had chosen duty over survival. The memorial bore the names of all the crew members, with Han Sol Kim's final words engraved beneath. "Some prices are too high to pay." The galaxy healed from the chaos of the Corvani collapse, but it healed differently than it had been before. The balance of power was more distributed, with no single empire dominating vast regions of space. Wars still happened, but they were smaller and shorter, as leaders remembered the example of beings who had possessed ultimate power and chosen not to use it. Humanity, despite being technologically inferior to many species, found itself with enormous diplomatic influence. The sacrifice of the Stellar Dawn had earned them a respect that could not be bought or conquered. When disputes arose between alien races, they often asked for human mediation, trusting in the moral example that Han Sol Kim and his crew had set. Years passed. The exact location of the ancient weapons cache was never found, though many tried to locate it. Some said this was because Han Sol had destroyed the navigation records before his final battle. Others believed the station had somehow moved itself, hiding once again until the galaxy was wise enough to leave such power buried. Children across the galaxy learned the story of the Stellar Dawn in their schools. Human children learned about the responsibility that came with strength. Alien children learned that honor could be found in any species, no matter how young or apparently primitive. The galaxy was not perfect. It